Welcome, everyone. It's your resident energy bean counter, Nathan McGowan, here with another Energy Executive podcast. This is our 11th show of the series, and we're excited to have Erik Holt of Teal Natural Resources. Erik is the Chief Commercial Officer at Teal Natural Resources, and today we're going to learn a little bit about Teal and a little bit about energy industry, but a lot more about Erik, our good friend with a K, not C, Erik with a K. Erik K. Holt, and I'm excited to have him on the show. Also to announce, this is a big first. Erik, you are the first attorney. You know, I'm married to an attorney, a lovely lady, but I always promised myself I would limit the attorneys on this podcast. But you're the first one, so we're excited to have you on here. And spoiler alert, he did go to Texas Tech Law School, so I got to get that props in here. But he also went to UT, so we'll see which school he has more love for. I'm hoping it's not the one that has Chris Beard at the moment. But I'm excited to have him on the show. And Erik, give us a quick rundown of Teal Natural Resources and your role there.
Well, thank you so much for that introduction. I'm humbled to be mentioned in the same breath as Sarah McGowan as far as legal skills. I mean, I know you're not comparing me because I don't, she's incomparable, but I appreciate that you at least bring me up in reference to Sarah. But Teal is a private equity-backed upstream company that is focused 100% in the Eagle Ford. So we're backed 50-50 governance by Pearl and NGP. Both are Dallas-based private equity firms. We over the last 5 years, we've aggregated roughly about 35,000 gross, 24,000 net acres in the Eagle Ford, the South Texas Eagle Ford, ranging from Lavaca to LaSalle. So we have a pretty wide breadth of where we operate. And as of today, I think we're operating 140 gross wells. Of those, I think close to 30 of them are ones that Teal has drilled and completed. We've got we've just completed. We're just TD'd 2 wells on our lease position in Southwest Karnes, and we'll be fracking them here in about a week. We're a private equity-backed port code that, again, lean, mean, and from the beginning, I want to credit to Roby and Neil, and in the sense that, always had kind of picked the Eagle Ford as a place to where we could potentially be, at the time when we founded Teal was a little bit out of favor in the market. Everyone was kind of chasing the Permian and the Delaware, and these, Neil with his background at Pioneer as a manager of the South Texas asset team, and then John Roby, who at the time was the CFO of Titanium Exploration Partners, which had built a non-op position in the Eagle Ford, really saw that there was an opportunity set to build an oil-weighted position. And we feel really fortunate to be where we are and partner with who we partnered with.
That's good. And so, you joined in 2016, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And was the company founded right around that time, right?
Right. And in fact, I believe you and I had breakfast at Breadwinners.
I was going to say, I remember that.
I believe it was just over 5 years ago. You and I were having we're having breakfast at Breadwinners at Lovers and Inwood, and it was not maybe 3 weeks. And I think you and I were catching up, and you had mentioned we both knew John Roby really well. And you brought him that he was, and so I was like, well, I need to reach out to John and let him, just say congrats on the term sheet and congrats on the, what he was putting together, and just touch base and catch up. And we had breakfast. John and Roby and I had breakfast, I think maybe 4 or 5 weeks after you and I had breakfast at the same place. And that's kind of what led me to Teal.
And so, for us laymen, commercial or chief commercial officer, break that down. Are you wearing the GC hat? You're wearing the land hat, the business development? What all falls under your realm?
Yeah. Yes. Let me take a step back. What I've loved about my experience in private equity-backed small, startup companies like this, particularly as someone who has a legal background, is that I get to wear a lot of different hats. I think when you're a small startup company that's entrepreneurial focused, lean, mean machine, I love the ability to know that any given day I'm going to be able to use a different muscle as far as just and to your by default I get to anything that encompasses legal falls into my lap. I've also do a lot with our land team. I, some of a big part of what I do also is our insurance program, and but in the business development, in the sense that, listen, I think in a small startup, in a private equity backed group, I think everybody is working in the business development team. But to the extent that someone who's kind of helping shepherd it and making sure that we're keeping all of our ducks in a row and making sure we're meeting the deadlines that we have to meet. That kind of falls into my camp as well.
And so, when you think about Teal and the evolution, going through COVID and the downturn, has the strategy pivoted, or did it pivot and then you're back to, the plan? Now things have kind of upticked a little bit. I mean, what's the last kind of 12 to 14 months been like?
Yeah, it's definitely been different. It's definitely, I would say, our minds. I was in Houston in February of 2020. We were at that time we were running a full rig program. We felt very confident and were very excited about what the next 12 to 18 months looked like with that full rig development program, for what that meant for the Teal scale, Teal's cash flow and production and so forth, and then it went. About 6 weeks later, I went home on a Friday and came home on a Monday, and it was a completely different company. It was a completely different world. We lived in a complete. The good news is that we have the balance sheet and the asset base that gave us the ability to be flexible and adaptable to that environment. Yep. And so to answer your question, so what do we do instead of working to outspend our cash flow by growing our production base? What we did was, it said, let's attack the cost. Let's look at how can we position Teal to be in a position. How can we position Teal to where when we get through this, not only are we going to survive this, but we can thrive through it, survive through it, and then thrive on it once we come out of it.
Yeah, I know. You think about there's always an opportunity, right? Whether it's a boom or a bust period. But coming out of what we just came out of, when you guys think about things, where is the opportunity lie now, or what do you think that you can capitalize on in this moment of, potential limited capital for a lot of others, not necessarily for you all, but what opportunity sets do you guys see out there?
I would say our mentality, probably in terms of Billy Quinn, who is the managing partner of Pearl, which is one of our equity sponsors, kind of tells the story this way. And the way I've heard him describe it is that he was having an LP investor conference, I think in early 2020, or maybe right at the onset of COVID. And his point was 2019 felt like that the industry was going through an existential crisis. Private equity capital was going through an existential moment where they were having to determine, okay, the capital markets have shut themselves off, so we're not having the velocity of A&D activity. So having to exit is, our options to exit are become very limited. And so and this is all happening in an environment where in 2019 where oil WTI averaged close to $58 a barrel. So here we go into 2020, and now we're seeing negative WTI pricing. So all it's done is that. So I would say that in the sense that how has Teal's mentality changed? I don't know that our mentality has changed that much. I think it's just reacting to the dynamic of the market. In 2019, where we try to be opportunistic and try to find opportunities to where we could add scale and execute acquisitions, you were dealing with a bid spread ask that was difficult to bridge. In 2020, you were dealing with creditors who didn't have incentives necessarily to sell at the price that the market was bearing.
Do you feel like some of those opportunities are opening up now, or?
I do. I think that I think the market is, at the end of the day, the market is going to dictate. The market's going to have its way. The market's going to win out, and what the market is continually been saying for the last 24, 36 months. There's too many oil and gas companies. We need less. We want to see more. We want to see more consolidation. We want to see less teams with more assets. And so I think at the end of the day, you're not, unless we really see an exorbitant price rally, the market's going to have its way.
Yeah, and I think Pearl, more than others, a lot of the groups was positioned where they almost had one team in basins. They didn't put a lot of teams in multiple basins, and so it's probably better for them in terms of not a lot of consolidating of 3 to 4 teams in the same area. But it's been an interesting time. So take us back to kind of before all this began. Your childhood story. You grew up were you born in McKinney or just grew up there?
No, I was born in Lubbock.
Lubbock. Oh, there's so many connections to the great old God's country, Lubbock, Texas. So when did you move to McKinney?
Spring of 1992.
Okay. And so you have several folks in your family that are tied to energy, right?
Right. My dad's a petroleum engineer. He and I actually got to, before Teal, we actually got to be partners together in a couple of ventures. And he's an operations engineer. I mean, tried and true operations engineer. I mean, his primary skill set is really drilling and production.
Does he want to talk shop with you to this day?
We talk shop every day. Yeah, no, we talk shop just about every day.
That's awesome. Is he still working or retired?
He is working. Yes, he is still a partner with a group called CP Expert or CP Energy now. It's
okay.
CPX Energy, which was the company that I came to Teal from was backed by private equity, and it was called CP Exploration, and he was part of the management team there.
Oh, okay, so, good.
And then when they had their exit in 2017, they kind of re-upped just with friends and with their own friends and family and they're actually about to do a drilling campaign in Loving County.
Oh, okay.
They've partnered with a group out of Dallas called Providence Energy.
Okay. Yep.
And so they're going to be drilling a handful of wells. But yeah, I think it's a lot more fun for him when he feels like something he gets to do as opposed to something he has to do.
Yeah. No, I can see that. And then your grandfather was?
My grandfather was a controller and accountant with an oil services firm.
Wise man.
With an oil services firm out of Midland. So he started his career with a Eastman Whipstock, which is now is a directional drilling. At the time it was directional drilling, and then he kind of built his career up with them, and then started his own directional drilling company with a few friends there in Midland.
Okay.
So
an entrepreneurial accountant, it's hard to find, but he started his own company. So do you have any brothers and sisters?
I do. I have a sister. I'm the oldest of 3.
Okay.
We're all 5 years apart. So I have a sister who's 35, and I have a brother who's 30.
Is anyone else in the energy business?
They have been. My sister actually started her career. She graduated from A&M in 2008. And was working in operations at EOG in Fort Worth. Okay. And then my brother graduated in 2013 and began his career in procurement and sales for Baker Hughes. Okay. They both have moved on to other industries, but energy's always been a huge part of the fabric of the Holt family.
Okay. Yeah. You mentioned earlier we were talking that you can remember in '99 the price of oil when it hit the low, and it's probably.
I would tell you, growing up, as soon as I was old enough to aware, we were always aware of what the price of oil was.
Where most families are like, oh, low gas prices, it's 99 cents. You're like, oh.
Right, and then exactly. That was the year. We both graduated from high school, and you're thinking of college and financing college, and it was not how we felt. Even it's probably not unlike how we probably feel about it somewhat today. But at that time, again, this is before the shale boom. This is, but it was not growing up. It was not a glamorous lifestyle. It was not a glamorous life. It was not a glamorous business that you aspired to be in.
Yeah, it was before the boom of kind of our generation.
Exactly.
It started to really fold into it. So in McKinney, what was Eric into as a kid?
Yeah, so I was really into swim team. I did competitive swimming for
Still swim?
not like that.
You still, but I mean, you still as a, I mean, as a
Sure.
And
Yeah.
have you ever done triathlons or gotten into
No.
any of that stuff?
No.
Man,
But,
you got a one up on everybody.
I know, but yeah. So I was. That was really, that took a big part of my social life. Was just, 'cause it's one of those. Swimming is one of those sports that you don't have an off season. It's every day. It is every day all year round. So.
Which is kind of interesting because as McKinney, Texas, I'm guessing they didn't have a massive swim team. So you were doing club or
We did. I did. Well, the high school had a swim team. The high school actually, that was the high school that I graduated from. When I graduated from McKinney, it was in one high school town.
Okay.
It now has 3 high schools, and growing. But the city pool was attached to the high school, and
Okay.
we were one of the few high schools really in our district that had its own pool.
I was gonna say because Rockwall, I was in your district,
You
my
were,
hometown,
yeah.
and I don't think we had a swim team. but good for you. So okay, so you go through college, go through high school, McKinney. What led you to go to UT?
Yeah, I had extended family in Austin. I had cousins who had gone to UT. I had gone to visit. I mean, all of our UIL events, are always in Austin and always at UT campus.
Try to swim there or
No. I mean, UT is like
super competitive.
Yeah, it's like the Alabama. You think of Alabama and football. That's really kind of what UT is in swimming.
And did you have any your dad or parents go to UT?
No.
Okay.
So both my parents, as I mentioned, I was born in Lubbock. Both my parents went to Texas Tech.
God, yeah, man, good family.
Very
Energy in Texas Tech. This is getting better and better.
And so to answer your question, McKinney at that time, before when I was growing up, was really it's. You think of it something like analogous to Houston. We're in Houston right now.
Probably like a Katy in term. I mean, that Katy's
Well,
tiny,
no, it was probably like a Conroe.
Yeah.
Conroe is something that's just in the last few years has really kind of become a part of because of the growth of woodlands Conroe has become a little bit of an extension of Houston / woodlands.
Yep.
That's what McKinney was like when I was growing up. You didn't feel like you were part of the Dallas Metroplex, and so something like Austin was very unlike what I had grown up in, and candidly, that was kind of what I was looking for, was something that just was different.
So when you went there, was it kind of culture shock in terms of big city and?
In terms of Austin,
Yeah,
it was culture shock in terms of culture. But I tell people all this and I have extended family that are younger and I think what was great about it was that going someplace that's completely different from from what you grew up to or what you're used to makes you really solidify the values that you believe in, and I wouldn't trade one day of my time at UT. It was a phenomenal. I made lifelong friends. It was a great place to. I mean, for all the reasons that Austin why people are attracted to Austin, those are all valid reasons, and I got to participate in all those reasons. But it was also an area where, the political persuasions that you grew up in McKinney, Texas, versus going to Austin are very different, and it makes you realize, okay, what do I truly believe? How do I truly feel about something? And if you really believe, and if you're willing to step up for it and defend it in a place where you're a minority on it, then I think that really is to your benefit. It helps.
So there's not a lot of Keep McKinney weird shirts, right?
Right.
And so you're in Austin and you eventually go to law school. We'll touch on that later. But is that always the goal? Did you know that going to UT is that I want to then go into law school, or did that become the goal?
Yeah. So going to UT, another big reason that was appeal to UT was that it was in Austin. I was very geared towards politics.
Okay.
I had the opportunity to intern for George W. Bush at the White House.
Really?
I had the opportunity to work as a full-time staff, as an intern, but a paid intern for Rick Perry. And so that was always something that really was kind of where I felt like my life, where I wanted to see my life and my career go, was more like,
and so you did these things. Now as an adult, would you want to be a politician?
No, no, not in this environment.
Yeah.
No, look, I think it's important that everyone's clued in and everyone has a pride. Everyone has skin in the game in terms of what's going on with their government, and I feel like I'm pretty clued in and have my opinions as to how things are. But no, the passion to do politics has only waned since I graduated law school, and a big part of that is because of how much I've enjoyed the last 11 years of working in the energy industry.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think people equate kind of business development and being social to politics and this and that, and to me, there's nothing about politics that seems appealing. It seems like you're always going to have a significant group of people disagreeing with everything you say, no matter what you say, and it just seems like a really tough way to live. But it's important, and I'm glad there's people out there willing to do it.
But to answer your question, the reason why what the attraction to law school, what planted to see the law school, is everybody who was 2 or 3 years ahead of me. Everyone who, when I was interning in the White House, everyone who was like the staff entry level political appointees or working, we're all, hey, I'm here doing this, but they're all applying to law school. They're all going to law school somewhere. And it was and they're like, because if you really truly want this to do, if you truly are thinking that this is what you want to do in terms of like some sort of political career, whether it's as a staff, as a lobbyist, having the law degree will amplify and add to that tenfold. So I was like, well, that makes sense. And so that's what prompted the idea to apply to law school.
Okay. And so, you finish out your years at UT and then you decide to go to law school. What brought you to Texas Tech, and was it comforting to go back to a city like Lubbock after being in Austin for 4 years, or did you miss the hustle in Austin?
I would tell you there are no better people you ever want to meet in your life than the people in West Texas and Lubbock, Texas. And I can say that because I married a girl who was born and raised in Lubbock. As a 22-year-old who was, who had only lived in Austin, who had lived exclusively in Austin for the last 4 years, when you come off the plane in Lubbock, you have to check to make sure you're not in Beirut, right? But
did you meet your wife in Lubbock?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah. But I would tell you, this tells you, this is kind of a microcosm. It's not a good analogy, but this tells you kind of everything that you need to know as far as a student going from Austin to from UT to Tech. When I was my junior year in Texas, I was living in a house with 4 of my best friends, and it was a little bit ways off campus. So I would drive my car to a neighborhood just north of campus, and then take the bus from that neighborhood. Take the Cap Metro bus, and and take it. That would then take me to the closest building that I needed to be to at UT. When I was looking at law schools, and when I was and kind of thinking, okay, when I was thinking, do I want to go to Tech, and I went to go visit, they said, oh yeah, if you want to, this is our, they have a parking lot directly in front of the building. I said, well, how much does this cost? Like, well, it's not free. I mean, this is, but it's $60 a semester. I was like, wow, okay. Well, you drive a hard bargain. So, but that tells you in terms of just everything is, and I don't mean everything is just easier for a student in Lubbock than it was in Austin.
Yep.
So while, yes, it doesn't have the visual appeal that Austin has as being in the hill country, everything else that Lubbock offers is fantastic for someone who's it's particularly in law school when
you're studying anyway.
You're studying so much. You're spending so much of your time studying anyway.
Yeah.
So
that first year of law school, was it that's the hardest year of the 3 years, right? So are you just living at the library and kind of grinding it through, or?
Yes, I would say the second semester was better than the first semester. The first semester, it was the fall. The two stories coming from out of that. One is that my first class was I believe on a Monday, and it was 8:30 torts. And I think, well, I'm going to be super go-getter, and I'm going to get there at 10 after, and like go and pick my seat and like be exactly where I want to sit, exactly where I want to sit. And I showed up on campus and got there and parked and walked in at 10 after 8, and I walked in the classroom and it was packed. And I had nowhere to sit except like this makeshift desk up in the back right-hand corner. And I was like, uh-oh.
There's a lot of go-getters in this room.
A lot of go-getters. Yep, exactly. Fortunately, like, he didn't assign seats that day. He was like, "I'll let you come down on Wednesday, and wherever you sit on Wednesday is where you're going to sit for the rest of the semester."
So it was.
So I get there like at 7:30 on Wednesday. So that kind of gives you. So that was kind of day one.
The bar was raised.
Yeah. Fast forward to 3.5 months later. It's December. We're in the midst of finals, and it is a grind. I mean, in finals, your first semester of finals. First of all, coming from UT where you're taking maybe 3 tests a semester, probably, and they're, it's you're taking tests all the time, so you have a good sense of where you are in the class and what you need to do on this next test. I mean, I'm sure as you can appreciate me, you get to that last final in undergrad, and it's like, do I want to take this final, or do I just want to eat the B? So it's like, I'll probably just eat the B. So while in your law school, you don't have anything except for that last test. And so that's the only grade that you get depends on that one and only test at the end of the semester.
It's a pressure cooker.
It's a pressure cooker. So I remember I was at the Texas Tech Law School. There is an atrium in the middle of the law school that has a big skylight at the roof. So that way it's all natural lighting. And as you know, this was in December, and I think some storm had blown through. And it was a windstorm of windstorms that blew all this red dust everywhere, red dirt and dust everywhere. And to the point to where as I'm sitting there in the atrium and I'm sitting back on a couch looking with my head up, just completely exhausted. And I look up and I can just see like this red cloud just descending over the atrium in the law school. And I think I even said, I've descended into hell. This is hell.
God's country.
Yeah.
Lubbock, Texas.
But I would move tomorrow if the opportunity presented itself. I would move tomorrow.
Oh, it's definitely. I mean, Austin's an amazing city. Lubbock is great too. They're both good for different reasons, but man, at this point in my life, I don't know. I guess Lubbock could maybe be easier than Austin. I don't know. But okay, so post law school, you come out. And you did go into practice.
I did. For
a few years before you went into industry. Tell us about what was that like, and why did you make the move to the industry?
Yeah. So I think my theory is that you have 2 types of people in law school. One is that you've got people who are like paralegals, or they were police officers, and they want to graduate in their career, and they realize the only way I can do what I want to do is being a licensed attorney. That accounts for maybe 10 to 15% of the people who go to law school. My theory. The remainder of the people, like me, are people who realize, well, I'm not 100% certain what I want to do yet, but I feel like if I go to law school and get a law degree, it will help point me in the direction of where I want to go. And that's the camp I fell into. And a lot of people think, well, if I don't know if I necessarily want to practice law, but having a law degree and having that skill set and that training will surely be something I can apply and utilize towards whatever career I do decide. But the issue, the problem, not the problem, but what happens is that when you go to law school for 3 years and you realize, okay, none of this matters unless I can go and pass the bar, so I'm going to go and study for the bar exam. And once you pass the bar exam, you realize, I'm now an attorney. And that's kind of where I found myself. So I was working for a firm in Dallas that I had clerked with for both summers. And
a firm that you initially worked with Mr. Founding Jim Penn, right?
That's right. That's right.
First experience with Whitley Penn was...
I don't know that he and I actually ever... If we actually ever corresponded or communicated, I don't remember. But that was my first entree into Whitley Penn. Was as... because Jim Penn was just the go-to guy for any forensic accounting. So a lot of people who come out of law school are now practicing law, and they realize, and they think, how did I end up here? So my story to that is that I was doing 100% litigation. And in litigation, essentially, a big component of what you have in litigation isn't just at trial. A lot of times you're not even going to full trial. You'll have hearings and you'll have evidentiary hearings that act like a trial, but otherwise they get settled out, or but a big component of that is discovery, which is like anything that you have that I need to see, you give to me. Anything that you know that I need to know, you give to me, and I give to you, and vice versa. It is a very tedious, arduous process. And if the opposing counsel is not being forthright and is dragging their feet or is withholding information, you have to then file a motion to have a hearing to compel that discovery. And so it was a hearing for a motion to compel discovery in Kaufman County, Texas. And so it's at 8 a.m. docket, and I'm living in Dallas. So I leave my house like around 6:30 just to make sure I get there in time. And I get there plenty early, probably about 30 minutes to spare. And I'm sitting there in a courthouse in Kaufman County, Texas, for a motion to compel discovery. So I'm having to do a hearing that I don't want to do for a process of litigation that nobody likes. And as I'm sitting there, I'm there, the opposing counsel's there, I don't want to be there, he doesn't want to be there, and the judge doesn't want to be there. And I'm thinking to myself, here we are, all the people who are participating in this process, and all of us rather be doing something else. And that's kind of what it was. That was the slap. That was the bucket of water. That was like, at that time in my life, I didn't have a mortgage. I didn't have kids. And I felt like if I'm going to do a U-turn here with my career, this is the time to do it. And I was blessed and fortunate to have friends. Like I mentioned, my dad, I had enough touch points with the oil and gas industry to have at least have an understanding that I knew I could do something and would have I had a good, good foundation as to knowing what it was. And I had a great friend, Wilson Woods, who is now the VP of land for a group oil and gas company out of Fort Worth, Texland Petroleum. He at the time he and I were roommates at UT. We went to Texas Tech Law School together. And he was working for a firm in Houston that did a lot of energy and title work. And so I just reached out to him. I was like, what can I do? And he said, you should look at going into land. This is in 2007, so the Barnett Shale was booming. And he said, I think I think this would be something you going into land work would be something that you would enjoy, and I think it would be something that that you could really still utilize the training and the skill set you have from being a lawyer. And he was 100% right. And so when I fell into the opportunity that I first got, was doing really just kind of doing contract work with, at the time it was Williams, now it's WPX Energy there in the Barnett and then the Marcellus. It was something from day one. It was like, this is what I've been looking for.
And then you worked for a few companies, Citrus and then Petro Harvester and CP Exploration. At what point in your career did you start doing less of the day-to-day land and kind of more of the overarching business development and more commercial officer role? I think that was your final role at CP. I mean, at what point did you start kind of moving up the food chain? And
yeah, I don't know that I look at it that way. I think that what all those companies have in common is that they were all small, privately held, independent companies that were like asset focused or goal focused. Citrus Energy was a phenomenal. It was a phenomenal opportunity with a group that was actually based out of Denver that had put together a land position in northeast Marcellus, in northeast Pennsylvania, in the Marcellus. And again, that was my entree to being on the operator side, and it was in doing that, it was a team of like 11 people, 12 people. And so you realize how collaborative the oil and gas business is, and secondly, you realize how, in a company like that, there aren't really tiers in terms of who's doing what. But to answer your question, when I got to Petrol Harvester was a startup that was backed by TPG Capital.
They haven't gone public, right?
No. They've actually merged done some subsequent mergers in another called Rockall Energy. And they're still going strong, but it was the founder at Petrol Harvester was the founder and CEO of Denbury Resources. I think the business model was, this is 2010, 2011. There's going to be a lot of opportunity for conventional oil, to buy conventional oil properties from folks who are going to need the capital to fuel their shell development. And so let's be the guys who are kind of can acquire and consolidate all these conventional oil properties. And so I think at the time when we started this is like in October of 2010, we had an office in Plano. And in that office in Plano, I think we had like probably 9 to 10 folks, and I was the only one who wasn't an engineer or a geologist.
At Petrol Harvester?
At Petrol Harvester.
Wow.
So that was really going more from land legal to like actual, okay, if it's regulatory, if it's insurance, if it's any oil and gas marketing, which has become which those were things where it was like, hey, no one else is going to do them, so you might as well just go ahead and take the opportunity to
figure it out.
Yeah,
cut your teeth. And then, so your final spot, CP exploration. Talk us through how. I know you touched on it earlier. You hear about teal. Why was it a good time to kind of break off and go with the startup?
I think that speaks more about teal than it does anything else. I think knowing John Roby. And I know you know him really well. He had put together a business model with 2 phenomenal sponsors, and it was kind of like, here's a chance to really kind of to have meaningful input in the trajectory of a company.
And to those that Mr. Roby, brilliant guy. You went to UT, different a little bit later than after you, but. And then undergrad was geologist, and then he got MBA in business.
Right.
Harvard.
Thank you. Yes, he is younger than me,
but
he is younger than us. He graduated. He went to UT. I believe he graduated with honors in mechanical engineering.
Okay.
And then worked for 3 years at Occidental Petroleum as a production and completion engineer on their Long Beach asset in Los Angeles, and then went to Harvard Business School.
Yeah, so he's got the little best of both, the finance and the engineer side. But super nice guy. As if I feel like people that went to Harvard, they're either, hi, nice to meet you, I went to Harvard, or they don't ever bring it up. And he's definitely one of those that he would never mention it. But really, really smart and thoughtful guy, and I always enjoyed being around him. So he convinced you to come over to Teal. Give us the rundown of day one. Don't have an asset. It's probably 4 or 5 of you. To today, how has that evolution been, and has it been late? Has it happened as you kind of foresaw, or?
Yeah, I would say not only has Teal evolved, but Teal has been in a position to where they can evolve as the market has evolved. I think that's probably an important distinction. You see, and I don't need to tell you, Nathan, because you're right here and you see it. You have a front row seat to it in terms of the practice that you built here at Whitley Penn. But it's been pretty tenuous as far as being a private equity portfolio company over the last 18, 24 months. And I think that you look at some of these teams that were phenomenal management teams, were able to execute. Some of these teams that aren't around anymore executed on the business model that they were underwritten to, right? I mean, everything that they promised to deliver, they delivered. Everything that they intended to execute, they executed well. What happened was the market changed. And I think that's, to me, is what, to answer your question, where I feel really proud to be a part of Teal, is that we've had the asset base, and from the get-go, we've had the asset base and the mentality to be, this is an ever-changing business. Let's have the asset base and put the balance sheet in place that allows us to adapt to it as best we can. And so as we think about what we're doing, what we did, in 2017, 2018, and how it looks a lot different, how that's a lot different than what we were doing in 2019, and now that looks a lot different than what we're doing in 20 and 21. But at the end of the day, it's the fact that we've been able to execute on what we did, which was let's not have assets that need a certain price handle in order to be successful. Let's not go and spend massive equity dollars on speculative land plays. Let's go buy oil-weighted assets in a good basin, that's close to the Gulf Coast, that we can have. Then, no matter how the winds change, we feel like we can adapt to it.
And you've touched on we touched on Roby, and like I said, I'm fortunate. I know a lot of the Teal members. I think you guys got a great team.
I think you
there.
know a lot of the members of a lot of companies.
Nah. But you got yourself, Roby. You got Ott, Neil.
Michael Ott is our new senior VP of finance, who we were very fortunate to land from Felix. Neil Basu is one of our founders. He's our president and chief geologist. He was actually the geological manager for the South Texas asset team for Pioneer back before maybe even before it was the Eagleford. It was just the Edwards. So I think he's drilled something like close to 260 wells in the Eagleford before he even stepped foot in Teal.
Wow. And he's a young buck too.
Yeah. He's older than me, but yes.
He is? Okay, yeah. Well, he looks younger than both of us.
He does. The best toupee guy you've ever met. He's got the best toupee guy.
That's right. And so, just give us what's your feel for the office. If you had to describe what the culture of your office with all these, I think are great characters. What's it like in the day-to-day?
Speaking for myself, and this is the analogy that I use, and you're asking about Austin and what that. And so my junior year in college, is I lived in a house with 4 other guys, and it was my 4 best friends. And so there was that when you were coming home from campus and getting back to the house, and you would see your friends, your roommates' cars were in the driveway or in the street, and there was a sense of excitement, oh, now we get to oh, so and so's home. Oh, everyone, so and so and so and so's home. We can hang out, and And I will tell you that it's that same type of feeling when I go to Teal. There hasn't been a single Sunday night where I've dreaded going to work the next morning.
Yeah, that's a good feeling because it's been, just for any industry, whether it's ours or yours, it's been tumultuous the last 12 to 24 months. So it's nice to have people in the boat that you like.
You brought this up earlier, coming over to Teal. What was really, and it wasn't as much as it was the business model and the equity support and Roby and then having the relationship there. Really, one of the things I think that really has really defined the culture of Teal is that a lot of the management, we're all guys who are all hungry and scrappy. None of us come into this saying, "Well, this is my third run, and I'm just kind of doing this just for fun." We're all coming to this. We all in the same between myself and a handful of in Bot and Bryce, we've had at least four kids born between us, and so we're all in that same.
Few sets of twins, right?
Yeah, a couple more than more. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, probably more than like the average, but more than the average set of twins. But we're all in the same life cycle, and so having that kind of all being there and seeing life the same way means that you all kind of make decisions that are all based on the same thing, and then also it makes going to work that much more fun.
Yeah, no, I completely get it, and you guys got a fun group there, and I'm fortunate to be around it when I can. But okay, so personal. Let's get to a little bit about you. I know you got twins. You have a 6-year-old boy. Your house has to be calm, very calm these days.
Calm to quite calm. Yeah.
Calm to quite calm.
I have a 6.5-year-old son named Jude, and I have twin daughters who are 3, Nora and Mila. No, it is every day you're a zookeeper, and but I wouldn't change them. I wouldn't change it for anything. It is.
And your wife's a saint, I'm sure, coming from Lubbock, Texas.
She's as good as they get.
Is she also a Red Raider?
She is.
Okay.
So her and I were born in the same hospital, a year and a half apart. She went to Coronado High School, went to Texas Tech. Her brother is actually a home builder now, and real estate developer in Lubbock. Her mom just retired from as a counselor at Coronado about 5 years ago.
Okay.
So, they are Lubbock true. Her brother says he's Lubbock for life.
So is your family more Red Raider, great raising the kids?
100% Red. Yeah, no, in terms of us at the whole.
Your house.
Yeah, I think, listen, I root for Tech all the time. I was gut sick when they lost that game to Virginia in the national championship, I know you were there.
I was there. It's disappointing.
Tech is just. Look, Texas has every advantage you could ever hope for any college program. And so it's more of a hey, why didn't Texas perform this year? And so to me, Tech just kind of represents the underdog.
Yes, I'm with you. I'm with you. Story of my life.
Yeah, and it's like look, there's nothing on paper that says that this school out in West Texas that's 5 hours from anywhere where you want to be, can be competitive. But they compete, and and so I would tell you, if when they play on Saturdays, when Texas and Tech play on Saturdays, it's a little bit of a struggle, but it was very much a struggle when they had Mike Leach, but then after I lost Mike Leach, I was like, these guys are going to do it.
I agree with you there. Okay, so COVID in your family, how did what kind of positives came out of a negative situation? More time with the around the dinner table, or what? I would say from us, our lives were always crazy and hectic, and I'm doing this, and my wife's working, and then now we've probably sat around the dinner table and had dinner every night. 90% of the time for the last 12 months, which we didn't do a lot of that before because either I was coming home late or whatever, and so that's a positive. But what about you guys? Any big changes?
I don't know that we had any meaningful changes because of COVID. I will tell you that what COVID revealed for us, more or less probably what COVID revealed things that and reinforced things that we already believe. And you brought the analogy, hey, we all get to spend more time together. For us, it was a little bit of the opposite, and I want to get a chance to kind of brag on her a little bit because my wife, before we had kids, spent her career with a hedge fund in Dallas, and that was the job that she had that allowed me to leave the practice of law and go and try to see if I can do something in the oil and gas business. But she kind of stepped back from that and retired from that after we started having kids, and I guess about a little over a year ago, there was the opportunity, but there was the potential opportunity that maybe she could go back, and she was like, "Look, I'm not that time the girls were had just turned 1, and she was like, "I'm not ready. I'm not there yet. I want to spend more time with the twins." And then I think when COVID happened, it made her realize, well, we can actually work. I can actually be working full time and still be home and have the best of both worlds. And so she used COVID as an opportunity to reach back out to the hedge fund at a time when everyone's contracting, everyone's shrinking their workforce, including the firm including her firm. And to her incredible credit, they brought her on board. And so that to me just, I think, reinforces what I think is just that, it's the opportunities are always there no matter what. It's just a matter of looking for them.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And stepping out in faith and knowing that, hey, I'm going to take risk. And for her, it was kind of like, she kind of went to that same, hey, I don't know, this doesn't make any sense for me to reach out to these guys, given the fact that, I know that they're contracting, that I know that we're in this market, the economy is just kind of like, but I just feel like this is something I want to just at least throw my hat in the ring and see if there's an opportunity here.
Good
it paid
for
off.
her.
Yeah, it paid off. So I think that's it. Yeah, COVID's just done nothing. It's reinforced it's reinforced for me what things that we've already believed in.
So what does a family time look like for the Holts? If you guys are you got a quiet Sunday evening or whatever it is, if you have any hour to spend together, where are you going? What are you doing? Of course, I know 2 and 3-year-olds. You're probably anything I could strap them down.
Are the kids involved? I would say, when the summers are always much more pleasant when we can be outside than when we felt like we had to be cooped up inside. But
the pool. You guys pool time?
Yeah.
Kids like the pool?
Yeah, they do, and that's a huge outlet for us.
Are you going to push the swimming on them?
No, they're pushing it themselves. I mean, they're already. My son's been swimming for a while.
Really?
Not he hasn't. We haven't gotten him in to a full-fledged swim team yet. But I mean, he's been doing swim lessons since he was 6 months old.
Is he a tall drink of water like his dad?
Not yet.
Is he gonna get there? Can you tell?
I don't know. I didn't. When I started high school, I wasn't any taller than anybody else. By the time I graduated, is when I got fairly tall. I hit my growth spurt when I was 16, 17.
It's like Dennis Rodman. He grew 6 inches after the age of 18.
Yeah. We were simpatico.
I've seen you get the boards. Okay, so we got speed round here. We're going to wrap it up. 20 questions. I always like to throw this in there. These have usually nothing to do about anything, and they're all over the board, so it's okay to get a little wheels off. But, okay, first one. If you weren't in energy, what would you be doing? What's your dream job?
Yeah, I think it'd be a lot of fun to host a
podcast. Okay, what's the title of it,
No.
Erik with a K podcast. Exactly. Okay, what is NAPE 2021 going to be look like?
Off the hook.
You think the pent up demand is there 100%. And everyone just wants to get out?
Yeah, if you're going to put bets on what's really going to ring back, the fall of COVID, I would put my money on NAPE.
NAPE is going to
be uptick. If there's ever going to be an event that puts the death knell on COVID, it's going to be NAPE. And I think it's also going to lead to a rise in COVID.
That's right. If you don't have the vaccine, you're going to get it. Yeah. No, I hope so, because I don't know. This energy, it's fun to be around people. The whole reason I like it, just there's so many good characters in it. And I'm excited to have something again where everyone's together, and hopefully it's at a point where there's some excitement, and it's, remnants of NAPE 2018 or 19 or something else, but who knows? We'll see. Okay, what's the last book you read? Do you read?
Talking with Strangers by Malcolm Gladwell.
Okay.
I had a chance to actually listen to the audiobook, and I don't know if that one it's a phenomenal audiobook because he treats it just like it's a podcast, and so there's other he actually interviews instead of just a written script. He actually you hear the interview that he's having with the subject that he's talking to, and secondly, he wrote it. It came out I think in December of 2019. If you reading it, it reads like he wrote it in response to what's going on in 2020.
Interesting.
And it's phenomenal. I mean, it really helped. He's a phenomenal writer. I mean, he doesn't need my plug, but but it was very enriching. I'm sorry, it was very enlightening.
Okay. We'll have to check that out. Okay, so is there one event that you can name that had a big impact on kind of help mold who you are? Like, yeah, I believe everyone has these events in their life, and whether it's 2 or 3 or whatever. Like when you're talking about deciding not to be an attorney, right? You're very.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a memory burned in your head. You got up at 7:30. You went there. You didn't want to be there. They didn't want to be there, and right there at that point in time, you decided, you know what? I need to pivot.
Yeah, this isn't anything professional related. It was the week. It was Labor Day weekend of 2004, and I was at a house party in Lubbock, and a guy who was in my section in law school had been seeing this girl, and she came to this party at this house party and came by herself and to meet him there, and I opened the door for her, and I was like, "You're not in law school." And that was Becca.
Oh, that's your wife. That's me and your wife.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that to me, I can point back to that moment. It was just like everything else it's just been completely uphill.
That's awesome. Now I have a similar kind of love at first sight moment, so I get that. Okay. Do you have any?
With who?
Well, before Sarah, there was this with my beautiful, beautiful wife, Sarah McGowan. Okay, so any interesting hobbies or interests? You collect coins, woodworking.
No.
Play trombone, nothing.
Yeah, no.
Swimming, but you don't do that.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I would say we. Particularly for COVID, we actually got into the Peloton.
Oh, okay.
Before
did you own it, or
we owned a Peloton?
And you got back?
We got back. We bought our first Peloton. We bought our only Peloton in early 2016.
Okay, first Peloton. The second one is competitive. And...
No, we don't have one. I'm thinking we had to replace part of it, but anyway, I mean, so we kind of got into it before it became like what it is now.
Yeah.
So that's always been something that we've kind of, we've actually gone to the studios in New York and done.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's
no, I've heard it's addictive for sure. I got right when the pandemic hit, and I'm pent up in my house. I just started running like a madman, not because I like to run, but I just needed
running is the most efficient
break
way. Yeah, exactly.
Mentally,
running is the most efficient way to get to work out and run it and get in shape. I'm just I don't have the knees and back to be able to run all the time. So Peloton's a great way to kind of expend that energy in a way that's easier on the joints.
What's the best vacation you've ever been on?
December of 2009, my wife and I, for the first time, went to the U.S. Virgin Islands. Not the first time. It was the second time we went to the U.S. Virgin Islands, but the first time we stayed at a resort it's no longer there, unfortunately, called Keneal Bay.
Oh, did it get...
It got wiped out by Hurricane Irma in 2017. So since then, we've actually, but we love beach vacations. And I don't know that there's a more beautiful setting for a beach vacation than the U.S. Virgin Islands.
And so beach over mountains for sure. Okay, if you had to tell 22-year-old Erik one thing, what would it be?
Everything's going to go exactly as you. Everything's going to go better than you ever expect once you meet Nathan McGowan.
It's all downhill from there. Come on,
yeah.
now.
Once you meet Nathan McGowan, you've hit the apex of everything you could hope for.
Oh man, if this is your apex, brother, you have nothing but uphill to look for. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so if you could have dinner with any one person, dead or alive, who would it be?
I feel like it changes depending on what my interests are at the time. Someone who I think is one of the most fascinating characters. I mean, as you know, as I mentioned earlier, was interested in politics. One of the people who I think is the most interesting personalities in all of American history is probably Richard Nixon. I think that'd be a fascinating dinner.
For sure. Before or after he was busted for Watergate?
Yeah, either. Yeah.
Okay, predictions on what Coach Beard does at UT now that he's turned his back on all of us TTU fans.
Yeah, I don't think he has a choice. If he's not in the Final Four in the next 3 to 4 years, I don't see what keeps him. Unless they're continually making the tournament and continually advancing the tournament, and I think they will. I think I'll be surprised if they're not in the final. If they're not in the Final Four in the next 5 years.
I mean, it's one of those tough things. I like the guy. I want success for him, but yet I'm just so disappointed he's no longer at Tech. Okay, what music do you listen to in your car?
Yeah, so I kind of grew up in the late 90s, early 2000s, and that was kind of my vintage. And so a lot of like Jimmy Eat World, a lot of Weezer, a lot of...
Is it Jim Blossoms?
No, come on, give me some credit. But yeah,
Man,
I saw in college. I saw Weezer, I think 4 different times. I saw Jimmy Eat World, 5 different times.
So you still play the throwbacks? Nothing new thrown in the playlist?
I'm trying. Nothing that's on commercial. Nothing that's on mainstream radio.
What's your most useless talent?
I can air drum like you.
You know what? Your wife told me that. She said it's pretty impressive. Okay, who in the industry has made the greatest impression on you?
My dad.
Your dad. That's pretty cool. I mean, you worked with your dad for a few years.
I worked with my dad for 6 years.
Yeah.
Was
ever? I know there's a lot of enjoyment, especially looking back. Was there other times where you're like, God damn?
Well, I'll tell you this story. So my brother is 10 years younger than me.
Yeah.
So when my dad and I started working together, it was in April of 2010, so 11 years ago. And when before I actually started, when it looked like hey, this was going to work itself out to where I was actually going to go work at the same, at the Citrus Energy where he was. Which actually, kind of came about like in a roundabout way, and it just happened where like, hey, by the way, I know your drilling guys, I know pretty well. So it was a great touch point. It was a great story in terms of landing there. But my brother and I were having a conversation, and he is 19, and he's I think he's a freshman in college, and so my dad's his big hobby, all of us growing up were his kids. I mean, he was the coach for all of our sports leagues. His grandfather named his coach for all of our for my kids and for my siblings' kids. And that's kind of what really what his passion is, or what are his kids. And so when I graduated and moved out, and when my sister graduated and moved out, all he had left was my brother, and so he got the full bore of like my dad involved. And it was, by the time you're 19, you're just kind of like, this is this is more than I can handle. And so he and I were having this conversation about Citrus, my brother and I, and he was like, so you would actually go work with Dad? And I was like, oh, I think it'd be a blast to go work with Dad. And he's like, I couldn't do it. And he's like, there's no way I couldn't do it. And I'm like, I can probably appreciate where you're coming from. Well, cut to like my first day at Citrus, and I'm in my office. I'm thinking like, man, like this is so cool, like it just. And my dad comes in and goes, hey, before you do anything, I want you to sit down. I want you to write, just every day, get here, and I want you to write down a list of the things you need to do, and that's going to be what that's going to set the tone for what you're going to get done that week. And mind you, he's an operations drilling engineer. I'm working working for the director of land and legal affairs. We don't I don't report up to him at all, and it's just like, so I don't and so he's coming in there and telling me, okay, this is what I want you to do. Like, I don't care what So after he walked out, I called my brother and was like, yeah, you may have a point. You might have been onto something here. You may have actually. I probably should have listened to you a little bit better. But
I missed the last 5 years.
But it was. But no, I wouldn't trade a day. It was. Really, to me, if and we talk, and this is what, and Roby and I have these conversations about, what I can look back and I can think, what the oil and gas industry has given me beyond just my career, and what the opportunities through the different companies, is that I think about the opportunity to work with my dad. I think about the lifestyle and since versus litigation when having our son and then having our twins and having the being in an environment that's a flexible and allows you to devote that time to them versus if you're through Sarah that time is not really you don't get to control your time as in the legal profession as a litigator.
Yeah.
And so those are the things I'm really I'll never take for granted.
If you, I've heard through friends of friends that you're good at imitating others. Is this a hobby, a passion? They say you do the mannerisms, the voices. If you had to do someone for the audience today, who would you do?
Yeah, I'm not going to. So we'll save that for another time.
Okay, tonight at dinner I'll get you to do someone, or maybe you can go back to Roby and do me. Okay, if you could live in any city in the world, where would it be?
Have you? There's an island just northeast of. There's an island in the Bahamas called Harbor Island that's just about an hour and a half northeast of Nassau. It's its own. I mean, it's completely uncommercialized. I mean, but it is about as nice as it's about as quaint and as beautiful as you could ever be. As long as Becca's there, and my kids are there.
And you've been there before?
I have. Yeah.
So does it have like small boutique hotels,
exactly.
big resorts? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's yeah.
Okay. What TV shows are you binging these days?
The last TV show I think we binged through COVID was Eugene Levy and his son.
Oh, Schitt's Creek.
Schitt's Creek. Yes,
Schitt's Creek,
sorry.
Yeah. No, that's pretty good.
We loved that.
And it's fun and like uplifting, which like most shows aren't these days.
It's
Ted
hilarious.
Lasso is another one. It's like
my dad,
man, that one's amazing.
My dad is obsessed with Ted Lasso.
Oh, it's awesome. It's like, well, your dad being a coach, he would love that because he's a coach.
He loved it. I think I came over. I think I went over to drop the kids off one day, not long ago, and he was like, "Before you're leaving, you're watching a Ted Lasso."
Yes.
So I was like, oh, "Great."
Well, if you haven't seen them all, you need to sit down and do it. I'm with your dad on that one. Okay. What does the retirement look like for Erik Holt? Are you still working? Are you still?
Yeah, I think if you're having fun, what you do, you don't want to retire.
Yeah, no, I agree. You gotta have something to keep busy. Got to keep the mind sharp.
If you don't have work, then when do you play? It's just what do you have? So.
I know. If I'm left to my own devices without anything to do, I think I would slowly deteriorate. Okay. So what's one thing about COVID you would like to continue?
The minute traffic has reduced quite a bit.
Yes.
Not just in terms of commuter drive, but also I think I flew down to Houston back in September. And I think I got to the airport like 30 minutes before my flight took off, and just walked right on in. And
it's starting to get back to normal in Houston. It's really annoying, but that's a good one because
my wife just had to replace her iPhone, and so she had to make an appointment at the Apple store. And so she just shows up and she walks in, to the Genius Bar. And she's got her appointment, so she just walks in and gets taken her. She's out in 20 minutes, and she's like, when pre-COVID, like this place is a zoo.
Yes.
It's just swarming with people, and you're just hoping that someone catches your attention so that you can tell them, hey, I need help. This is what's going on. And she was like, this isn't. I'd keep this. And I was like,
what's one thing you'd like to see go away? COVID. Or are you ready to not? I guess me, it's the I like shaking hands, and that's really now so awkward, right? Like you extend the hands. Are we shaking hands? Are we not shaking hands? Are we dapping? I don't know what we're doing. For one, I think the masks have to go away tomorrow. That's that to me. It's just like it's almost like a disconnect, personal too. It's like I don't know. You're like staring at someone's mouth that's not moving.
And again, it's. I like to wear sunglasses, when I'm driving, or like when I'm out of and like it fogs up your. And then I also wear sometimes I wear glasses, so it fogs up your glasses. And this, also if you got facial recognition on your iPhone,
I know you're always having to take it down. That's right. When are they going to
having to punch in your passcode is like, what more can I bear?
Okay, you're stranded. You're gonna like this one. You're stranded on a remote island, and you only can bring one person from Teal. What employee do you bring, and why? Who's resourceful or who's entertaining? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not struggling to think of an answer because I think they're all would be great.
No,
it's not like who do I pick?
No one's gonna be sparking a fire.
Yeah.
You got no Boy Scouts? No go-to?
I'm trying.
That's a tough one.
I would tell you. I think if I had to guess who would probably be the most resourceful, I would put my money on Neil. Yeah.
Okay, I can see that. Okay, well, we're gonna round it out here. Who should we have on the podcast next?
I'll introduce him to dinner tonight. It's a guy named Martin Tilson, and he's a young guy. And in the midst of COVID, kind of started his own midstream group.
Okay.
Or maybe before COVID.
Is Buckhead?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And has, in terms of like scrappy and
we haven't had a midstream guy on, I don't think.
Yeah. He's I've just been introduced to him the last year.
Okay.
And he's been somebody who, full disclosure, we sell him our oil, but he's been completely constructive, thoughtful, and responsive and helping us think through solutions, particularly when we were in an environment where, at one point we weren't sure how we were going to sell our crude.
Yeah.
So, plug to him.
No, I like it. Let's do it. Well, hey, thanks for your time. I really appreciate it. This is special. Coming down to Houston, record a podcast. We got an exciting dinner tonight.
Thank you, Nathan. I'm sure I'm not the first one to say this, but, really proud to have you as a friend, and really proud to see you see how your career has just completely what you've done with your opportunities in your career with Whitley Pennant in this industry, and I think we're in a better industry because of you.
Well, Eric, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate everyone's listening, and until next time, we'll see you later.